looking into what's being done to reform conditions on Rikers Island. This comes 2 days after the 19th death of this year of a person being held in a city jail, New York. City Correction Department Commissioner Molina testifying that progress is being made toward making Rikers safer under an action plan developed with a federal monitor. He says slashings and stabbings are down 85% over the last 12 months at a facility housing inmates under the age of 22. That's thanks, he says, to a violence reduction plan that will now be expanded to other facilities.
We next return to court on April 27th. At that time, I have every intention of presenting a picture of continued progress toward undoing the years of mismanagement and neglect that have made an action plan necessary.
Outside this council hearing, before it, activists gathered on the steps of City Hall accusing Mayor Adams of not doing enough to stick to a plan to shut down Rikers by 2027.
Actually just did 22 years in the Virginia Department of Corrections for nonviolent offenses. While in jail, I got into an escape security situation, and they placed me in solitary confinement while I was at the jail. And when I was moved to the Department of Corrections, they also placed me in solitary confinement there for about the first year of my stay there. Solitary confinement was it's an experience that I can't really put into words. I don't think that individuals understand what it's like to be held in a space the size of a parking space and be given nothing but a mat and the bare minimum clothes, don't even have hygiene products. To come out of your cell, you have to put handcuffs and shackles on, and you're walked with a leash down a tier to a shower or to a recreation cage that is about the size of your cell. It's horrific. After 2 weeks, you start to deal with all types of mental things, wondering about reality because you're so separated from it, the deprivation. Yeah, it's a horrific experience. Well, solitary confinement, I did several, over 22 years in prison, I did several times in solitary confinement for different reasons. Sometimes solitary confinement can be placed on a person for bed management spaces because they don't want you in a particular pod, and until another bed comes open, you can be held in solitary confinement. I was sent to solitary confinement for possession of a cellular phone. Actually on a couple of different occasions. A cellular phone is considered a major security risk in prison. And when that happens, you are placed in solitary confinement until you go through the disciplinary process, and then you're usually transferred, and you're held in solitary confinement until you're transferred. So I did, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months on different occasions that I was placed in solitary confinement for a variety of different reasons. Well, solitary confinement has taken on many names because one of the clever things that prison administrators have done is preservation through transformation. They change the name but keep the same practices in place. So solitary confinement, or what we choose to call isolated confinement, really comes to taking a person out of what would be the general population and placing them in a singular cell or sometimes a double cell, and then keeping them separated from the rest of the individuals around you. Minimal contact with staff or people in general. You don't have televisions or commissary or most of the hygiene and clothing that is available to the general population. You're not allowed to leave your cell without wrist restraints and leg restraints. And this is, up until I left. I left in 2021. I've been home almost 2 years now. And yeah, it's exactly how it sounds. We are naturally social beings. It is unhealthy to be isolated, especially when you deal with the mental state of most individuals who are incarcerated, which is depressed and despondency and despair. And also mental health issues. There are a lot of individuals who are placed in solitary confinement due to the behaviors that they've shown because of mental health problems that they may have. And while you're in solitary, you hear people screaming and banging on doors for 20 and 24 hours a day, and it's just a miserable thing. Individuals attempting suicide, individuals retaliating against staff members by throwing bodily fluids and all types of the crazy, most gruesome things that you can think of. Those things happen in solitary confinement. So solitary confinement is just exactly what you think it is, a living nightmare. it certainly affects people in many different ways. It exacerbates mental illnesses. It makes it hard to socialize because you become very intuitive in your nature as a means of survival. How it has affected me? Well, I've come home and I've had to deal with the trauma of not knowing how to relate to individuals around me. And a lot of the things that I deal with is not just solitary confinement, but it's a combination of 22 years of incarceration. But the solitary confinement in particular, hanging over your head throughout prison as a potential disciplinary option, it was horrifying. I mean, you were scared, you walked along a chalk line hoping that you would never be sent there. And it was jail within a jail. And so I still deal with those things today, trying to have meaningful relationships with people. I'm isolated a lot now. That's my place, comfort place. And it stops me from having meaningful relationships sometimes and productive relationships with family members, friends, and the like. So yeah, it has long lasting effects. And I like to think that I'm probably one of the good stories, because I know of horrible stories of individuals who came home from long-term solitary confinement, took their lives, or even took the lives of others. So it affects many people in many different ways, but it certainly affects them. You know, I came home expecting one thing and came home to a world that was 22 years beyond the way I left it. And so it took a lot of adjusting. I am very thankful to my family for walking with me as much as they could through the process. I'm thankful to mentors and individuals in the community who decided to kind of take me under their wing and really help me try to use whatever strengths I had to fight against some of the conditions that I experienced while in prison. And so, you know, through activism and volunteering, and you know, I've had my missteps. It hasn't been all peaches and cream, but I'm starting to get it really into gear. You know what I'm saying? I have a great job that I'm really excited about. I love working every day. I love being able to volunteer and give back. I love thinking that I'm affecting change for people who are in similar situations like myself. And that has been therapeutic on its own, giving myself a sense of self-worth, I'm sorry. But being able to do that has really helped me. It has helped me mentally, it has helped me physically to just feel motivated to continue to fight this good fight. And I just want to say that when we talk about the conditions of solitary confinement, in no way are we minimizing the crimes of individuals who may be incarcerated. That's not to say that these people are not guilty of particular crimes per se, but we're talking about cruel and unusual punishment and torture, something that is outlawed by the Constitution. And we are better than that. As a people, as a country, we're better than that. We can treat people with dignity and respect and still hold them accountable for their actions. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. Ignite Justice, I'm the national spokesperson for Ignite Justice. Please reach out to us, Ignite Justice, on our Facebook page. I'm also on the Coalition for Solitary Confinement, and I am the co-chair of the People's Rights Committee. The People's Rights Clinic. So reach out to any of those organizations, and if you are moved by what I had to say or any of my comrades had to say, then I ask you to get involved and make your voices heard. That's how we accomplish change. We need the voices of the people.
On News 12 The Bronx, in the wake of the 19th inmate either dying at Rikers Island or shortly after being released from the jail so far this year, advocates today yet again called for the city to close the notorious jail complex once and for all. News 12's Johnny Caldwell has more on what those advocates were demanding today at City Hall.
Rikers Island is inhumane. Rikers Island is torture. And Mayor Adams, you need to shut down Rikers Island now.
Today, renewed calls to shutter the infamous Rikers Island jail complex echoed outside City Hall.
Close Rikers now!
Prison reform advocates are calling for its closure just days after 39-year-old Edgardo Mejias became the 19th inmate to die at Rikers, or shortly after being released this year. Ralliers held signs bearing the names of those inmates.
The person who died was arrested for shoplifting. Shoplifting should not have a death sentence attached to it. What we need is a system that moves and moves quickly. That's right. Get people adjudicated so they can go home or go where they need to go, but they should not be in a death trap for as long as they are.
The Department of Correction tells us Mejias died Sunday while in custody and that his death is being investigated. But the calls to close the infamous jail comes as it's been highly criticized for years for its violence, neglect, and the conditions inside.
50 years ago, I was on Rikers Island. Guess what? It was bad then, it is worse now. And for decades, nothing has changed.
There is absolutely no reason why Rikers is still open. Staff at Rikers treat us as if we were animals. Everything is dirty and unsanitary.
Back in 2019, the city council voted to close the jail by 2026. But advocates say under the Adams administration, the plan is behind schedule.
His inaction has made it so that people continue to die on his watch.
They're now calling on Mayor Eric Adams to get the ball rolling. At City Hall, Janae Caldwell, News 12.
Whose streets? Our streets.
Now, we did reach out to the mayor's office for a comment on these calls to close Rikers. We will let you know when we hear back.
New York City Council Committee grilled the commissioner of the Department of Correction today as Rikers Island grapples with its highest death toll in nearly a decade.
CBS 2's Tim McNicholas was at the hearing this afternoon, and he has a recap.
19 people died! Close Rikers now!
Outside City Hall, activists call for Rikers Island to close.
The things I experienced while I was there were horrific.
Including Camilla Jones, who was released from the jail last week.
You hear the stories, but you don't truly know how terrible the conditions are. I'm sorry.
Inside.
Good afternoon.
Department of Correction Commissioner Luis Molina paints a different picture.
The department has demonstrated that progress has been made and has shown its commitment to reform.
The City Council's Committee on Criminal Justice questioned Molina on a federally monitored action plan to improve the city's troubled jail system.
Something's not working right now. It's not working.
Some activists and council members have expressed support for a federal takeover of Rikers Island. Molina argued against that plan and said his department is improving staffing and expanding searches for weapons. Nonetheless, the Department of Corrections said in late October that an inmate stabbed a corrections officer in the back of the head 15 times. The commissioner also revealed today the department is considering scanning inmates' mail to keep drugs out. On Sunday, a Rikers inmate named Edgardo Mejias died of a suspected overdose.
There was no indication that there was any failure on our staff to not respond as quickly as we could, which was within seconds.
Molina also stated today that the inmate population will not drop to 3,300 by 2027, a key metric for previously announced plans to close Rikers Island and replace it with smaller borough-based jails, a statement that concerned Councilmember Lincoln Ressler.
Rikers Island must close, and it must close swiftly.
The Department of Correction is expected to release a report on its progress in April of next year. At City Hall, Tim McNicholas, CBS 2 News.
Calls to close Rikers Island are growing louder after the 19th death of an inmate while in or just leaving DOC custody. A rally is happening at City Hall this afternoon ahead of an oversight hearing from the Committee of Criminal Justice. Ralliers are asking the DOC to create an action plan to address staffing, security, and violence compliance. As for the death of that inmate, Edgardo Mejias, the DOC says it's being investigated.
Three years ago, the City Council passed a plan to shut down Rikers Island and open new jails across the city.
It's time for us to once and for all close Rikers Island.
As part of that plan, the city must reduce its jail population to 3,300 by 2027, when Rikers is slated to close.
The current census is just under 6,000.
There are now more than 5,900 detainees in city jails, a population that has been on the rise over the past year. And on Tuesday, the head of the city's correction department cast real doubt on whether the city will meet its goal.
I mean, we have done internally population forecasts that we think the population in 2024 could be over 7,000. But I don't see them being at 3,300 in less than 4 years if nothing else changes with the administration and adjudication of the administration of justice at the court levels.
Molina acknowledged the city is legally obligated to shut down the city's troubled jail complex. At the same time, it will be tough to do that if the jail population does not shrink before.
What I'm telling you is that in 2027, we will not be at 3,300.
We can get to 3,300 if we invest in justice-involved supportive housing, if we invest in alternatives to incarceration, if we invest in population review teams, if we invest in therapeutic beds.
The comments come at a hearing before the city council on whether the city is turning its jails around. It also comes 2 days after the latest death on Rikers Island. Edgardo Mejias died on Sunday. His death is under investigation. Sources tell New York One Narcan was used at the time. Molina said his officers responded swiftly when Mejias appeared to be in medical distress.
They came to his medical aid within seconds of being alerted that he was in some level of medical distress, and took action to bring Mr. Mejias to the main clinic to receive medical services. And unfortunately, Mr. Mejias passed away.
He was the 19th person in custody or recently released from custody to die this year. At City Hall, Courtney Gross, New York One.
That the crisis is being tempered, as he says, that staffing levels are up, the incidents of violence are down. However, we have seen more deaths this year than we have in about a decade, and people who are rallying against Rikers today say anyone who is sent there is being sentenced to death.
People are dying there, and we need structure.
Over the weekend, a 19th inmate died at Rikers Island, reportedly over a possible overdose. At 19, it's now the most deaths in a year for the Department of Corrections since 2013. And while a judge recently blocked a federal takeover, Mayor Adams believes he has what it takes to help turn it around with city resources.
We can fix these problems.
Shut it down!
Though today families, community groups, and former inmates are converging on City Hall to protest the chaos they say has ensued at the jail since the mayor took office in January, which began with an inmate hunger strike.
And what has happened? The inmates run the asylum right now.
Today, the City Council's Criminal Justice Oversight Committee will dissect the current state of affairs when it comes to the DOC's plan to address jail staffing, security, and violence, and also hear testimony on a pair of bills involving pregnant inmates and creating a city-run parole board for qualified offenders.
Innocent until proven guilty. There's no reason why people should be in a position where they're dying.
But the Correction Officers Union continues to be concerned that not enough is being done to keep them alive, too.
Is this board really invested in making the jails on Rikers Island safer for everyone, or are simply looking out for the interests of the inmates?
So we have been telling you that there is an effort to shut down Rikers Island by 2027. That plan was put in place by the de Blasio administration. However, Mayor Adams says that they continue to look at building borough-wide jails. However, the timeline in which was set by the previous administration, he believes.
You know, I just want to take my hat off to the boldest, the men and women of the Department of Correction. As long as I can remember my time in law enforcement, this has been an agency that has been ignored, has been an agency that every day, in spite of all of the negative news, they come every day, they do the job, they hold it down. And they have been calling out for years of saying, we need help, we need help, we need help. And the problems that they have been facing did not start in 2022. In fact, it has started generations ago. What we're seeing, the erosion of our correctional facility, is a complete neglect of the men and women who serve here every day. They come in, they deal with some of the most dangerous people in our city. When a person commits a crime, a homicide, a rape, a robbery, they do not go back to their block. They go back to a cell block. And they have to ensure that person does not harm another inmate, harm a staff, or in some cases harm themselves. And instead of us lifting them up, We do just the opposite. We tear them down over and over again. But I'm here to say to the men and women of the Department of Corrections, this mayor is not going to tear you down. I acknowledge your job, I acknowledge what you do, and I'm saying thank you for what you do. The job you are doing, people don't want to do, yet you do it every day. And as I walked through the facilities and saw how you are continuing to evolve, I'm more solid in my belief we picked the right person to be the commissioner of the Department of Correction. And I want to thank Commissioner Molina. This administration has gone through so many challenges since January, from fires to loss of officers, to violence, to COVID, to economic strife, our economy. But the crisis we're facing here is one of our largest crises. And we could easily throw up our hands and say, let the federal government take over. We could have easily done that. But no, we know we are better than that. We know that we can fix this problem. And all we ask is to give us the opportunity and the resources to carry out this function, and for all of our partners to do their job, unbottlenecking the court system, making sure those who are committing crimes are going through the process and having laws that not only protect citizens, protect those who are carrying out the job of protecting us. And we do want to acknowledge the recent deaths in the Department of Correction. But let's look at each individual death and find out what happened. It blew my mind to learn out of 5,000 prisoners, they have over 140-something thousand cases of people getting medical treatment. Think about that number. By the time they get here, their pre-existing conditions, their health crises, mental health illnesses, all of the things that people are facing at the worst end of their lives are discovered when they come here. 5,000 people, over 140,000 medical interactions. That's an amazing number to look at and examine. I saw that today as I walked through and talked to people in custody and in correction, some of the young people who are in the Peace Center, how they wanted to sit down and say, we want to interact, to learn more. I'll be back here to sit down and speak with many of them. I can learn so much from the inmates that are going to be returning home. I was here last week, I believe, at a graduation ceremony. You know, I probably was last week. You know, when you're the mayor, my life is like a dog life. One day is many days. And seeing these graduates and touched by the principal of the school, watching all these layers of these officers and what they're doing. Walking through the first facility with the warden, you can genuinely see she cares. I mean, these officers, they care about these inmates and ensuring that they can get something out of here instead of doing time, that they can learn during this time so they don't continue to work. And we know that we're not where we want to be. It's a lot of work in progress, a lot that we have to do. But at the heart of that is doing something that must be done, keeping our place safe. It starts with this. Look at this. This is only an example. This is an example of what they retrieved. Look at these pieces. Look at these shanks. This is what they come to work to experience every day. The weapons you see in front of you are small samples of 2,700 different weapons. We were able to recover these weapons because Commissioner Molina came in and resumed the tactical search operation that had been previously suspended. We stopped the tactical search operation that allows us to retrieve this because those who are not protected inmates would allow this. And so, as politicians normally do, they succumb to the loudest and say we're going to stop doing these searches and allow people from the time we suspended to carry these weapons. not me. Ignore the noise and get the job done. And I thank the units that carried out this function. And because of not only the search procedure, many people talk about the officers that are out. How about focusing on 1,400 officers returned to work under the leadership of Commissioner Molina and his team? They're back. And those who are out legitimately, they have a right, if they're injured and now sick, to be out. Those who are abusing the right to be out, we're going to focus on them. But that is not the entire population that is out. Some have been injured, attacked, out sick from COVID for a long time. Rikers was ignored when people were asking for masks, PPEs, and other resources. We ignored Rikers Island. And some people have legitimate reasons that they're out, and we will distinguish between the two. You see that a lot of these have weapons that you have in front of you are made from plexiglass and other building materials taken from the jails themselves. So people use the eroding facilities as to become a weapon factory to attack other inmates and officers. The numbers are often ignored that over 80% of the attacks here are on other inmates. Those who are dangerous don't stop being dangerous because they come to Rikers. They continue to be dangerous. And I'm here to tell you that the era of neglecting our jails for political reason, that era sunsetted on January 1st, 2022, when I became the mayor of this city. We're going to be focused and not going to let people wander the streets of our city with dangerous weapons like these, and they can't do it on Rikers Island. Tactical search operations work, and we're going to continue to do them. Since we resumed tactical search operation in February, slashings and stabbings have declined by 63%. So, when you saw those slashings and stabbings going up, they suspended the searches. And we have ex-commissioners that are criticizing this commissioner. What did you do when you had the job? You telling us everything we're doing wrong. What did you do right? We decreased slashings by 63%. Assaults on staff resulting in use of force are down 30% compared to the same 6 months of the period last year. Use of force is down 27% as compared to the same 6-month period last year. This is proof right leadership can turn the corner, and we have the right leadership in Commissioner Molina. We're seeing progress, and it's not only that we're saying we're seeing progress, the federal judge said it. He said we're moving in the right direction, and we have the right leadership. That's what the federal judge said. So everyone was calling, take Rikers away. An independent person that viewed our plan and our operation and our progress stated they are doing the right things to move it in the right direction, and we're going to continue to do that. We're seeing progress, and that progress is going to continue to materialize. The plan includes an interagency task force designed to give our jails the support they need and stop having the boldest do this on their own. Rikers is all of our responsibility. The Department of Education, probation, housing, all of us are responsible for what happens here on Rikers Island. And that is what we're saying to our city. We will hold people who possess weapons and contrabands and commit crimes in our jails. They will be held accountable. Since January 1st, we have rearrested 121 people in custody for crimes committed. And I want to thank Darcel Clark, the Bronx District Attorney, for being a partner on this. Rikers Island has become a way station, not the last stop. And we know that. We must give people the protection of the law as we enforce the law. And enforcing the law is not only on our streets, it's inside our facilities that we're housing those who have committed crime or accused of committing a crime. We must do more, and we know that, and we will continue to do more. And we are focused on the root causes of crime. That is why we want schools, graduation. Walked into one facility where they're teaching welding and how to be a mechanic. We don't want these young people and adults to continue to come back into our society. That is the holistic approach that we are facing and what we're doing. You heard me say it over and over again. There are many rivers that feed the sea of violence. We have to dam each one of them. This commissioner is doing his job of damming the rivers that allow people to return to violence. And that includes those who are here with learning disabilities. First mayor in history that we will be testing inmates for dyslexia. It is predicted 30 to 40% of the inmates here are dyslexic. And we're not waiting until they come back home. We're testing them here in Rikers to give them the support that they need. I am truly pleased of what I am seeing and what I saw today. And I will be back here over and over again to make sure that this is part of our overall plan of supporting these men and women. This is one of the toughest jobs in this city, if not the toughest job in America. These officers were doing 12-hour tours. They were doing triples. Triples. Not seeing their families. And every day they pick up the paper and they hear how bad they are. How we treated Rikers Island and the men and women who are here, we should all be ashamed of that. And it doesn't lose sight on me. Look here. Predominantly black and brown. Who are the inmates? Predominantly black and brown. Overwhelming number are predominantly women in a dangerous environment. You got to think about that for a moment. I see it and I know it. And I'm saying to you, you're the boldest and you're one of the best law enforcement entities we have in this country. I thank you for doing your job and doing this life-saving work. And this is a mayor that acknowledges you. And I am not ashamed of you. I am proud of you. Keep doing the job you're doing, and we're going to be there to do it with you. Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for your continued leadership and support of this department. I want to thank our uniformed staff. Without their support and dedication to their jobs, which you see before you couldn't have been done. Not only did we seize over 2,700 contraband weapons, but we also seized over 400 different types of drug paraphernalia and narcotics that tries to get into our facilities. So every day our men and women in uniform are doing everything they can to make this place safe. And they're led by the men and women you see behind me, our wardens and acting assistant chiefs, in order to be able to get this work done. But in addition to our uniform staff, I want to also shout out our non-uniform staff. Our program staff and our contract providers are engaging with the people in custody, our credible messengers. It is a holistic approach in order to get individuals not to respond violently to issues of conflict. And I also want to thank our faith-based leaders. We've increased our interaction with our faith-based community so that they're in here and they're interacting with persons in custody, but they're also interacting with our staff too, because this work is not easy. So thank you for coming today and giving us an opportunity to share with a lot of the work that we've done here to make progress today.
Let me stay here. If any questions on topic.
Rikers Island tonight announces the first inmate death of 2023. According to the Department of Corrections, 65-year-old Marvin Pines died in the jail's infirmary just after 6 this morning. The city's medical examiner has not yet released a cause of death. The DOC is expressing condolences and promises a full investigation. Last year, there were 19 jail-related deaths in our city.